B'Shem Hashem na'aseh v'natzliach. Welcome to everyone on Zoom. Welcome to everybody on Facebook Live. Tonight's shiur, as always, dedicated for the Refael Shalama of Kol Cholei Am Yisrael, especially Asher Ruach Ben Chana Tzer El Malka and Elisheva Tova Bat Sarah and Rachel Chaya Yafa Bat Victoria Miriam and Rachamim Hayim Ben Faroch. And also Leilun Shmat, my father, Lava Shalom, Rabbi Mori Atired Roshi Refael Ben Monavar and Ashraf Bat Shajan and Hayim Ben Yehuda HaLevi. Okay, so today we're going to discuss something very, very interesting in the Sefer of Zera Shimshon. It should also actually be Leilu Nishmat, the Zera Shimshon. And this Parashat Vayetze that we're going into this week, Parashat Vayetze discusses when Yaakov Avinu leaves his hometown and goes into the hometown of Lavan. And he works there for his two wives, and the story goes on. We're going to go towards the end of the story when Yaakov Avinu is going to want to return back home. Okay. Now, Yaakov Avinu worked for 20 some odd years at Lavan's house. He was there with Lavan for 20 some odd years. And Go back. Yaakov Avinu was away from home for 30 some odd years, and I'm going to tell you how the math is done. Okay? Now, 14 years he worked for the two daughters. So he worked 7 years for Rachel. He was given Leah. So then he worked another 7 years in order to get Rachel. That was 14 years. Then on top of that, he worked another 6 years for just as a partnership, sort of. He worked for Lavan for another 6 years. That was 20 years. Altogether, he was away from home 36 years. It was 14 years in the beginning when he was on his way to Lavan. He learned in the yeshiva of Shem Va'ever. That was 14 years. It took him 2 years to go back home. That's 36 years total. But for 20 years, he was working for Lavan. And the Torah says, when the moment came for Yaakov Avinu to go back home, why did Yaakov Avinu leave home? Simply because in last week's parasha we saw that Yaakov took the blessings from Esav, right? It was rightfully his, but his brother Esav was not too happy about losing the firstborn brachot. So Yaakov Avinu, through the wisdom of his mother, leaves home. His mother Rivka says, Yaakov, run away, go to my brother's house, Lavan, and stay there until the anger of your brother Esav goes down. And Yaakov Avinu listens to his mother like any good Jew should. Always listen to your mother. Yaakov Avinu listens to his mother, and I don't know why when I say mother, I turn into like this New Yorker guy, but I guess it's the Jewish side of me. And Yaakov Avinu leaves and he goes to Lavan's house. Now, when did we say Yaakov Avinu is supposed to return? When he feels his brother's anger has diminished, where he no longer wants to kill him. Esav wanted to kill Yaakov. However, here it says, Vayhi kasher yalda Rachel et Yosef, and it was as soon as Rachel Imenu gave birth to Yosef, Vayomer Yaakov el Lavan, Yaakov said to Lavan, Shalecheni ve'elecha el mekomi ul artzi, send me away so that I shall go to my place and my hometown. So there's a connection here with the birth of Yosef HaTzadik, with Yosef and Yaakov Avinu being comfortable enough, feeling comfortable enough to go back home and face his brother. Already we see here there's something special about Yosef's birth when it comes to going back home. Yaakov Avinu somehow all of a sudden no longer fears Esav because of Yosef. Shoelet HaGemara, the Gemara asks, Madua davka keshenolad Yosef ichlit Yaakov lishuv la'artzo. Why is it that as soon as Yosef was born, Yaakov Avinu decided it was time for him to go home. The Gemara answers, Yaakov Avinu barach levet Lavan mipnei ka'aso shel Esav, because Yaakov Avinu ran away to Lavan's home because of the anger of his brother Esav. Ka'et shenolad Yosef, now that Yosef was born, lo chashash Yaakov me'Esav. Yaakov was no longer worried about Esav. Umaduya, why? Why was he no longer afraid of his brother Esav? Cheers. I already made a bracha before, so don't judge me. Thank you. Okay. Why is it that he was no longer afraid just after Yosef was born? Omer Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani, Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani says, Yaakov Avinu yada shein zar'o shel Esav nimsar ela b'yad zar'o shel Yosef. Oh, look at this. Look what the Gemara says. The Gemara says Yaakov Avinu knew the only person, the only people, let's put it this way, that could get rid of or stand before and be triumphant against Esav is Zar'o Shel Yosef, the offsprings of Yosef. Shenemar, as it says, Vaya bet Yosef bet Yaakov Esh, the house of Yaakov was Esh, and the house of Yosef was a big fire, a torch. Uvet Esav lekash, and the house of Esav was compared to straw. Meaning, you got a torch, you got a big fire, and you got straw. What does fire do to straw? Devours it, destroys it. That was the comparison between Yosef and Esav. Yosef versus Esav was like fire fighting straw. You ain't got no chance. Tonight, we're going to discuss why that is so. Why was it that Yaakov Avinu knew? And why is it that Yosef really, what power did Yosef really possess to be able to beat Esav? Shoel Zera Shimshon, the Zera Shimshon asks, Ma meyuchad bivnei Rachel u'Yosef HaTzadik? What was so special about the children of Rachel Imenu, and especially Yosef HaTzadik, that only he could withstand Esav, to face Esav? Why is it? Ever think of this, guys? Yosef HaTzadik, the true nemesis. What do you call it? Like in the Marvel world, and you got evil versus the good. You know, you got, what would you call Yosef and Esav facing each other? It's a classic. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, some people got kicked out. I'm trying to get them back in here. Okay, Jonathan, it's nice to have you with us once again. All right, so now that's the question. What was special about Yosef HaTzadik, or the children of Rachel, that gave them the power to be able to beat Esav? The Zera Shimshon answers, and it's going to be a little bit long, but we'll get through this together, my friends. Sherachel imenu hayta miyu'edet mirosh leYaakov Avinu. I guarantee you, most of you guys, I'm almost positive, no one has ever heard this chidush before. This is incredible, what the Zera Shimshon says. He says, because from the beginning, who was truly supposed to be the wife of Yaakov Avinu? Leah or Rachel? Rachel. Quite simply, Yaakov Avinu wanted the younger daughter of Lavan. He wanted Rachel. He wanted to marry Rachel. However, Lavan was this trickster, this trickery of a man. He tricked Yaakov to marry Leah first. And then after doing so, he says to Yaakov, I mean, what did you think, Yaakov? It is not customary in our place, as if he cared about customs. You know, it's not customary in our place to marry off our younger daughter before we marry off our older daughters. And by the way, Lavan was not Persian, so it's got nothing to do with that. But That's the custom they had. It's not customary to marry off our younger daughter before our older, so you have to marry the older one. Then Yaakov goes ahead and marries Leah, and then marries Rachel afterwards. This is what the world used to say though. Shaya Rachel lekatan. This is what was the word of mouth in those days. They used to say, Rachel is the katanchik, she's the little one, she's for the little one. Who's the little one? Yaakov. This is what the word of mouth of the family of Abraham and the family of... This is what they used to say. Rachel is saved for Yaakov. She's the little daughter of Lavan. So she's going to marry the little son of Yitzchak, who is Yaakov. V'gadol legadol. And the older one is going to be for the older son, meaning Leah, who's the older daughter of Lavan, is going to be set for the older son of Yitzchak, which was Esav. Nimtza sherachel me'olam lo hayta shayechet le'Esav. So we find that Rachel Imenu was never set aside for Esav. Rachel had no connection to Esav whatsoever. To begin with, she was set aside for Yaakov. She was meant to marry Yaakov. ולכן רק בכוח בניה של רחל להתמודד מולו. Therefore, the only children that could withstand Esav were the children of Rachel, not the children of Leah. Because to begin with, Leah was supposed to be with Esav. She was supposed to be his wife. She was supposed to be a part of him. But we'll see. And that which we see, that Leah was really set aside for Esav, but she did not marry him at the end. Why? It was only in the zechut of her tears. Leah used to cry bitter tears and daven to Hashem, and she would pray to God. She did not want to marry Esav. She knew that she's that portion. She's the portion of Esav, because everyone said it. You know, from the family of Yitzchak, Leah is going to marry Esav because she's the eldest. She's going to marry the eldest, and Yaakov is going to marry Rachel, the younger for the younger. Leah did not want this. Leah Imenu was a tzadeket, and she did not want any part of Esav. She didn't want to be with the evil Esav. That's why the Torah says that her eyes were dimmed, and she had dark eyes, and her face was she looked older than her age, because she used to cry herself to sleep. Davening to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, she did not want to marry Esav. And only because of this, she merited being the wife of Yaakov instead of Esav. And because of this, she even merited being buried next to Yaakov Avinu in Marat HaMachpelah. Something which even Rachel Imenu did not have. Rachel Imenu is not buried in Marat HaMachpelah in Hebron. Leah Imenu is. Even though she wasn't even destined to be Yaakov's wife in the beginning. Through this part here shows the koach tefillah, koach of tears, the power of our tefillot, our prayers and our tears. She was not even destined to marry Yaakov. Not only she got to marry Yaakov because of her prayers and her tears, but she even got to be buried where the rightful wife of Yaakov was not buried, right next to Yaakov. Vamnam tefilata shel Leah. Here's more chidushim coming up. Look at this. Just listening. ואמנם תפילתה של לאה הועילה לה להציל את עצמה שלא ליפול בחלקו של עשיו. The koach of the tefillah of Leah was able to save her from having to marry Esav. That it did. It did help Leah not to have to marry Esav. However, אין לומר שיש בכוח בניה לנצח את עשיו. But because of this, it did not leave her any more power for her children to have the power, to possess the power to get rid of Esav. She, through her tears, saved herself. However, because she was a little connected to Esav to begin with, her children did not cast that power to be able to get rid of Esav. Mishum shahaya bitfilata chisron mu'at. Because in her tefillot, there was something missing. There was some kind of discrepancy in her tefillot. Umau chisarona. What was this? What was missing in her tefillot? Why is it that she was not capable of being strong enough for her children to also be able to withstand Esav, to beat Esav in this eternal war? So the Zera Shimshon puts together, compares בין הנהגתו של יעקב אבינו בנוגע לדינה ביתו שלא תינשא לעשיו לבין תפילתה של לאה להינצל מעשיו. The Zera Shimshon compares two scenarios here. Now, listen. Here's what happened. If you guys remember, Yaakov Avinu had a daughter, Dinah, right? And when Yaakov and Esav finally met, what did Yaakov Avinu do to Dinah, his daughter? You guys remember what he did to Dinah?
Hided her.
Right. He hid her. Why did he hide Dinah?
Hided her.
Right.
Suitcase.
Why did he do that? Because he did not want Esav to look at his daughter and say, you know what? She looks pretty. I want to marry her. Yaakov did not want her daughter to become the wife of Esav. So he hid her. Mishum Shachasha, right? And why is it that he hid her? Listen to this. This is another part of Chachamim's Chidushim that you guys probably didn't know, which I can't get into tonight. Why is it that he did not want Dinah to marry Esav? Because Dinah might have been capable in changing Esav and making him better. ויעקב אבינו לא היה חפץ בתיקונו של עשיו. Yaakov Avinu did not want to give Esav this chance. Yaakov Avinu did not want to give Esav the chance to become better. Why that is so, we're not going to get into. Esav was way too far on the other side, let's put it that way. And there had to be this black and white between them. So Yaakov Avinu did not want Dinah to marry Esav because he did not want her to help him. But because of this, ne'enash Yaakov Avinu min hashamayim. Yaakov Avinu unfortunately was punished because of this. Velo avru yamim rabim, and not many days passed that what happened? Shechem ben Hamor came and they took Dinah by force. Where over there it says that Hashem said in Shamayim, you did not want to give your daughter Dinah with your own hands to Esav, which could have helped Esav. You did not want to give your daughter to a person that had a Brit Milah. And you did not want to give your daughter to this person with your own hands. What happened? Instead, she was taken by force by someone that did not even have a Brit Milah, that was not from Avraham Avinu's family. So Yaakov Avinu, we see, was punished for this. But he had his own reasons as to why he did not want Dinah to marry Esav. Chachamim tell us, right, Lo bikashta lehinas lesiya limhol. You did not want to marry her off to someone that had a Brit Milah. Harehini said la'arel. She will be married to someone without a Brit Milah. Lo bikashta lesiyat derech heter. You did not want to marry her off in a permissible way. Harehini said b'derech isur. Then she'll be married by force in a way of isur, in a non-permissible way. And therefore, the same thing here. Vegam le'ah. And so too, Leah, the same thing. Sheitpalela shelo lipol bechelko shel Esav. When she prayed not to become the wife of Esav, lo nahaga k'ra'ui, was not correct what she did. Why not? Mishum shayta yechola lehinnaseh lo, because she could have married Esav. Leah could have married Esav. V'le'azor lo lachzor lemutav. She would have been able to save Esav. She would have been able to change Esav. But she didn't want to. She didn't want to even have anything to do with Esav. So she prayed and she prayed and she prayed until God accepted her tefillot and she fell into the portion of Yaakov. She became Yaakov Avinu's wife. But ואמנם לאה לא נעשה על כך. לא נענשה על כך. But however, Leah was not punished for this. Leah wasn't punished for not wanting to marry Esav. אך די לה בכך, but it was only enough of a punishment. אך די לה בכך שהצילה את עצמה. It was enough that she saved herself, but ואין זכותה מספקת לגרום לכך שבניה ינצחו את עשיו. However, but her zechut would not reach that far for her children to have the strength to beat Esav. So let's recap. Yaakov Avinu did not want Dinah to marry Esav. Why? Because he did not want Esav to receive that help from Dinah. Leah did not want to marry Esav because she did not want to help Esav. She did not want to have anything to do with him. Even though she might have been able to save his life and make him a better person, she didn't want to take that chance. But Yaakov Avinu, for doing that and not letting Dinah help Esav, he was punished, and Dinah was taken by force. Leah Imenu prayed to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and Hashem answered her tefillot. She did not take any action. She only prayed to Hashem. So Hashem didn't punish her, but however, her children would never have the strength to go against Esav. That's one answer. Anyone have any questions so far? Those of you that can see me on...
Why would Yaakov Avinu be getting a sin for not giving his daughter to Esav?
Because that's what we said here, that the Chachamim say from Bereshit Rabbah, from the Midrash says quite clearly, it says, you did not want to give a chance to Esav because Dinah could have changed Esav and made him do teshuvah. You didn't want to give a chance to Esav, and you didn't want to let your daughter marry someone that had a Brit Milah. Esav had a Brit Milah. He was from the family of Yitzchak Avinu. Right? You didn't want to give a chance to Esav to become a better person. What?
I'm saying that's a big risk. I mean, if he was already all the way on that side,
yeah,
he was predetermined to be like this. Why would he give that opportunity?
Right. So the Chachamim asked that question also. Like, what do you expect of Yaakov? Why should he put his daughter in such a situation? Why should he risk his daughter? That's one question in its own. But here, according to this, it's brought down in another place that Yaakov Avinu knew that Dinah could quite possibly help Esav do teshuvah, but he didn't want to give Esav the chance. And the Zera Shimshon talks about that in Parashat Vayetze later. So we see that quite possibly she could have. And Yaakov kind of knew that she could have helped him, but he didn't want. Basically, put it in a nutshell, Yaakov even had to deal with Esav and said, sorry, your internet connection is not good, so it keeps cutting off. One more time.
I'll try from my phone. I'll be back.
Okay. Basically, Yaakov Avinu was basically saying that Yaakov has the spiritual world. Esav wanted the physical world. So Yaakov was saying, in order for my generation to be able to tap into the spiritual world completely, I need you out of the spiritual world. I need all the spirituality that you have from you. You take the physical, I'll take the spiritual. Don't mess with the spiritual. Right? So Yaakov Avinu did not want to risk anything of the Shevatim, any of the spiritual power of the Shevatim whatsoever. So he said, I don't want Esav to come messing around in the spiritual world and take what could be possibly a much better spiritual world for the rest of the world for my children. That's in a nutshell, from what I understand from it. But we're not going to get into that. But so far, no questions here. Jonathan, are you clear? You're kind of like, you kind of look like you could use a drink.
I have more questions. I'll leave it till the end, so we can continue.
Okay, fine.
Hold on, I just got here. Can we start over?
You're funny. Omi, it's past your bedtime. Go to bed. Okay. I'll repeat the question. We are discussing why is it that Yosef HaTzadik, the Zera of Yosef, the seed of Yosef, is the only one that has the power to beat Esav. And one of the answers that we gave so far was that because Leah was originally supposed to be married to Esav, but because of her tefillot, Hashem answered her tefillot and she married Yaakov. So really, she was supposed to be Esav's wife. So her children don't have the power to beat who was supposed to be technically the husband of their wife, of their mother, right? So to speak. But the children of Rachel do have the power because she was really destined to be Yaakov's wife to begin with. Now, al pi zeh, according to this, levar madua kasher ya Amalek mizar'o shel Esav, why is now from here we can understand that when Amalek comes from the Zera of Esav. Amalek comes from Esav. Our sworn enemy is the seed of Esav, Amalek. And when they came to fight Bnei Israel, it's so interesting. I had this question. I used to think about this. You know the story of Amalek, when Amalek fought the Jews in the Midbar, in the desert. What happened? It says that the Jews were fighting. Moshe Rabbeinu was on a hill, and he was holding his hands up, and when his hands were up, the Jews were beating him, and so on and so forth. Who was fighting the war? Who was leading this war? Huh? Okay? Who was fighting the war? Yehoshua. Yehoshua was fighting this war. Yehoshua was fighting the war. He was leading the war against Amalek. Question is, why didn't Moshe Rabbeinu just go himself? I guarantee you, if Moshe Rabbeinu was in that war, there would be no war. Why wasn't Moshe Rabbeinu fighting himself? Why did he send on purpose Yehoshua? Because Yehoshua was from the Zera of Yosef. And Moshe Rabbeinu knew the only person that's going to beat Esav is someone that comes from the seed of Rachel. Moshe Rabbeinu was what? What shevet? Levi. Levi was from the children of Leah. So Moshe Rabbeinu sends his own shamash, his assistant, to fight the war. Why? Not because he didn't feel he has the power, but he understood that his shevet can't do it. It has to come from Yosef. It's incredible when things like fit into a puzzle so perfectly. And you see it repeated later on as well. This is not brought down here, but you see it repeated later on as well. You see by the story of Haman and Esther Malkan Mordechai. Mordechai was from what Zera? Mordechai was from Binyamin. That's the only reason Mordechai knew that he can beat Haman was because he was Ish Yemini. Ish Yemini, he was a Ish Yemini, he was from the Shevet of Binyamin. The first king to ever fight Amalek as the king of Israel was who? David HaMelech? No. Was it Shlomo HaMelech? No. It was Shaul. Was Shaul from the Yehuda dynasty? Was Shaul from the Davidic dynasty? He was not from Yehuda. Shaul was from Binyamin. The only reason he was given that task, even though who's supposed to be the kings of Israel? Only from the Shevet of Yehuda. But the first king to be chosen by Hashem himself was Shaul from the Shevet of Binyamin. Why? Because he had one task. First, go beat Amalek. Because you're the one who's going to be capable in dealing with Amalek. You're Shevet Binyamin. The others aren't. That's why David HaMelech didn't do it. Shlomo HaMelech didn't do it. Now, you know where I'm going with this? Who's next? Who's next? When Moshiach comes, does Moshiach just come? Who comes first? Moshiach ben Yosef. What does Moshiach ben Yosef do? Moshiach ben Yosef comes, fights the war against Amalek, and then Moshiach ben David comes. Ever thought to yourself, why? Because Moshiach ben Yosef is the only one, the seed of Yosef is the only one to beat Esav. Can't be done without him. Guys, I don't know if this is not beauty. I don't know what beauty is. It's masterful. It's perfection. It's Torah. It's truly masterful. Let's go further. And the Zera Shimshon adds in another twist. Why is it truly that only the children of Rachel have the power to beat Esav? The Midrash says, This is what the Midrash says, Yalkut Shimoni, in Parashat Shoftim. Amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani says, Mesoret agadahu b'yadenu. It is a mesoret in our, it is a tradition that we have. Shein Esav nofel ela b'yad baneha shel Rachel. That Esav only falls by the hands of the children of Rachel. Lama. Why is this so? Why the children of Rachel? Shein baim hashvatim ladinim Esav. This is, I'm telling you, I got goosebumps reading this. I had tears in my eyes. Listen. He says, Shein baim hashvatim ladinim Esav. If the Shavatim, if the other tribes come to judgment with Esav, to come and judge Esav for his wrongdoings, and they say to him, Lama radafta et achecha. If the Shavatim come to Esav and they say, why did you chase your brother out of his home? Why did you torture your brother Yaakov? Hu omer lahem, he's going to turn to the Shavatim and say what? Lama radaftem et Yosef. You're judging me. Why did you, Shavatim, chase Yosef out of his home? And you're asking me. Bekivan shehu ba etzel Yosef. But when Esav comes to Yosef, Omerlo, and he says to Yosef, Yosef says to Esav, Lama radafta et achicha. Yosef turns to Esav and he says, why did you chase your brother out? What is Esav going to say? Nothing. Ve'im tomar she'esav she'asa lecha ra'a af achai shilmu li ra'a ve'ani shilamti lahem tova miyad hu shotek. What's going to happen? Because if Esav comes and tells Yosef, hold on a second, you also chased your brothers out, Yosef's going to say, nah, that's not what happened. You see, my brothers chased me out of my home, they sold me as a slave. And when I had the chance to get them back, I didn't. That's the difference between me and you. And therefore, Esav has no power against Yosef in Shamayim. The other Shavatim, Esav is going to say, what, you're judging me? You're asking me why I chased Yaakov out of his home, why I tortured Yaakov for so many years? You're judging me? You did the same thing to your brother Yosef. But he can't say that to Yosef. Because Yosef's going to turn and say, I didn't do that. Not only I didn't do it, I got the back end from my brothers. I was sold as a slave by my brothers. When I became a king and I had a chance to get them back, I didn't. Not only did I didn't, I saved their lives. I paid them, I gave them sachar, I rewarded them for the slap that they gave me in my face. Therefore, the children of Leah have no power against Esav, but the children of Rachel do. The Midrash says, "Ein shevet ba'am Yisrael she'achol lit'on kalfei Esav." There is no shevet in all of Israel that could demand of anything from Esav as to why they tortured their father. Only Yosef HaTzadik can come with this request. The Zera Shimshon asks on this midrash, Hare Yaakov Avinu hichlit l'shuv la'aret le'eretz Yisrael miyad kasher nolad Yosef. Yaakov Avinu decided to go back home right after Yosef was born. Right? Ve'im ken, minayin yada Yaakov kavar az she'achei Yosef yisneu oto. Hold on a second. According to this midrash, what are we saying? We're saying according to this midrash in Yalkut Shimoni that The reason why Yosef HaTzadik had the power to beat Esav was because he was chased away from his home, right? By his brothers. Those brothers have no power against Esav. Yosef does. Why? Because he was chased by his brothers and he didn't do anything to them. But hold on a second. When Yaakov Avinu was going back home to face his own brother, he only decided to go back home after Yosef was born. He was just born. He wasn't sold yet. None of the episode of Yosef being sold by his brothers and the evil towards Yosef, none of that had happened yet. So if we're saying the power that Yosef has to do with the fact that his brothers sold him and he didn't fight back, it hadn't happened yet when Yaakov was going back home. So what's the Midrash saying? Where does this power come from? He wasn't sold yet. Yaakov was just going back home. You understand the question, Yonatan? You understand the question? Ariel, you got the question?
I'm listening.
What?
Rabbi, I got the question. And I think the answer is similar because Yaakov also had to run away from home.
Is the answer that Rachel could have gotten Leah back and she didn't?
Oh, that's a good one. I like that. I really like that. No, that's not the answer. But that's a really nice one. Very good. Rachel could have gotten Leah back and she didn't. But yeah, I like that answer. Very nice. Chazak Baruch. V'amnam. Okay. Lachen. So the Zera Shimshon answers like this. Sheyakov Avinu ziha koach miyuchad kvar me'et lidato shel Yosef. Yaakov Avinu had this special power from the moment Yosef was born. So that didn't necessarily have to do with the fact that Yosef was sold later on. Already Yosef had a special power. Shedar korniten leidmoded mul Esav. And this power gave him this power was powerful enough to go against Esav. One second. It says because until then, Yaakov Avinu had a fear. He feared that the fact that he married two sisters together, that Hashem counted that as an avera for him. And he was afraid of that sin. And he felt that because of that sin, he might not have special zechut, enough zechut to go versus his brother Esav. Even though that we have in the Torah that you're not allowed to marry two sisters, Yaakov Avinu lived before the giving of the Torah. But however, we know that our avot, our forefathers, kept the Torah even before it was given. I was telling my students the other day that it's unbelievable that we have something called the Sefer Yetzirah. The Sefer Yetzirah was a book that was written by Avraham Avinu. And till this day, we have this Sefer. Can you imagine? Like, we have a book written by our patriarch, Avraham Avinu. So our patriarchs knew Torah. So therefore, because they knew Torah, they kept the mitzvot. Now there's questions of which mitzvot they kept, where did they keep these mitzvot, that's a different issue. But here it says Yaakov Avinu was afraid that the fact that he married two sisters together, he felt that it might count as an avera for him. Right. Why is it that only because of this avera, Yaakov Avinu was afraid that he's not going to be able to beat Esav? The Gemara says, "She'inyan hayichus ba'am Yisrael hu rishon b'ma'alat kedushat am Yisrael." The Gemara says, you see, a yichus of Bnei Yisrael is the number one thing that protects Am Yisrael. Yichus means our lineage. The Jews' lineage is very, very powerful thing that we have going for us always. And we see this from the stories of David HaMelech how David HaMelech used to pick warriors at the time of war as soldiers. It says that David HaMelech had unbelievable warriors fight in his wars. However, he didn't only choose soldiers that were tzaddikim, that were righteous people, and he didn't only choose them by the fact that they were mighty warriors, they were very, very strong. He also looked at their background to make sure that their yichus is perfect. He wanted to see where their lineage comes from. And he only picked those that he knew their lineage could withstand war and could fight the war, and they have the zechut of their forefathers. If not, he would not risk their lives, and he would not risk the lives of Am Yisrael by enlisting them into his army. אך ישנם תפקידים שאם אדם מכהן בהם, אין צורך לבדוק את ייחוסו. מאחר שכבר בדקו את ייחוסו בטרם התקבל לאותו תפקיד. One second. I'm just going to finish this paragraph and I'll tell you guys briefly because we're running out of time. So Zera Shimshon says, Bnei Esav noflim davka biyadea shel bnei Rachel. The children of Esav, Amalek, only fall by the hands of the children of Rachel. Why? Mishum shal yedezeh megala HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because by doing this, HaKadosh Baruch Hu shows the entire world that the marriage between Yaakov and the two sisters was a good marriage. And it was not an averah for him. This is God's way of showing that he was okay with Yaakov marrying Rachel and Leah together. How? Because if Yaakov Avinu had a sin by marrying these two sisters, אז גם כשהיה יוצא למלחמה ומנצח את עשיו, היו אומרים שניצחונו של יעקב אינו משום שאין בידו עוון, אלא בכך, sorry. גם היו אומרים, אם היו בני לאה יוצאים למלחמה ומנצחים את עשיו, and therefore he says, the fact that the Bnei Rachel, the children of Rachel, are the ones to have the power to go against Esav, that is God's way of showing the world that Yaakov marrying two sisters never counted as a sin for him. If the other children would have the power too, then you would say, maybe Yaakov Avinu did make a mistake by marrying the two sisters. But here, Yaakov Avinu knew that Hashem has given him special permission. And because of that, the moment the children of Rachel were born, the first child of Rachel was born, Yosef, Yaakov Avinu already knew that this is my power source. This is how Hashem is going to show the world that I made no mistake by marrying two sisters. Why? Because the second sister that I married, her child is going to be the one destined to beat the true nemesis of Am Yisrael, which is going to be Esav. I know the second answer is a little bit deep and it's hard to understand, but let's recap everything before we go for questions. The first answer was that the only way Esav will be beaten is by the hands of Bnei Rachel, the children of Rachel, and especially Yosef. Why? Because number one is because Leah Imenu was first destined to be married to Esav himself. And because he was destined to marry Esav, then he did not have, she was destined to marry Esav, she did not have the koach to go against him. But she only merited to marry Yaakov was because she davened and she cried and Hashem gave her that zechut. But she did not have enough zechut for her children to be able to withstand Esav. However, Rachel was destined to marry Yaakov to begin with. And therefore, her child only became the children to fight Esav. And then we said also from the Yalkut Shimoni that the children of Leah could never come and judge Esav and say, hey, we're going to fight you because you tortured our father Yaakov and you chased your own brother out of his home. Because Esav could turn to them and say simply, hey, you did the same to your own brother. How come you chased Yosef out of his home and you sold him as a slave? But he can't say that to Yosef, because Yosef's going to turn to Yaakov and to Esav and he's going to say, I was chased out, but I never took revenge on my brothers. And that's the only zechut that he has. And we see throughout history, as we explained, in the story of Purim, and the story of the fight with Amalek, and the story of Shaul HaMelech fighting Amalek, all throughout history, until Moshiach comes, the only zera, the only seed that could uproot Amalek is the seed of Yosef and Binyamin, that are the children of Rachel Imenu, none other. Because they're the only ones that are invested with that power. And I can just add and say, what gave them that power? Not having sinat chinam. They were never involved in the disunity between the brothers. Benjamin was never involved whatsoever. And Yosef HaTzadik was at the other end of the stick. And when he had a chance to fight back, he never did. He even rewarded his brothers. Maybe this is the answer to the Geula. This is why the only way our redemption will come is through Ahavat Chinam, through baseless love, through loving every Jew and through unity. This is the only way. Because we see from Yosef HaTzadik, the only reason Yosef HaTzadik has the power to withstand Esav is because when he had the chance to pay with revenge, he showed love to his brothers. And the same goes with us. If we truly want Moshiach Tzidkenu to come now, if we truly want the Geula which comes with Moshiach ben Yosef, we have to have the same exact attribute. And that's the attribute of unity, to unite with our brothers and sisters, to love them no matter what. Sephardi, Hasidish, Ashkenazi, Chabad, I don't care where you come from. I don't care how you make your brachot, brachos, briches. I don't care. If we love every single Jew, I don't care your reform, I don't care where you come from. I don't care how observant you are. If we truly love every Jew of Am Yisrael like our own bodies, that's what brings the Geula, just like Yosef HaTzadik. And like Mr. Omid Balachane said, just like Rachel Imenu. When you have a chance to really take revenge or get back at somebody, and you don't, that brings the Geula one step closer. May we all be zochet to Geula shelama b'mehera v'yamenu. Amen. Baruch Adonai le'olam. Amen ve'amen.